Gene's guidance, the Perfect Pint team has put a lot of effort into creating a very unique, very bespoke, a very specific menu that showcases the best of the Perfect Pint's culinary creations. This hard work dovetails with the extensive selection of refreshing pale ales, lagers, wheats, and more crafted beers by our master brewer, Mr. Alec Tempoco. Each beer has been exclusively crafted in-house and brewed to be different. And there's 30 of them that you'll be able to pick from anytime that you come and visit the Perfect Pint here in Rockwell. Now, before we officially begin the tasting part of the program, I want to turn the floor over to our award-winning chef, who will give us a crash course on food and beer pairing if you haven't tried it before. Everyone does food and wine pairing, but food and beer pairing is something that we're going to experience here, and some of us for the very, very first time. Once again, Chef Gene, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. We're not going to be experts of everyone here, but what we're going to do is I'm going to be doing a guided tasting, and I'm going to be doing this guided tasting not to be experts of everyone, but to make everyone enjoy what Perfect Pint is all about. This is very sentimental for me because we started so many years ago. There was a little bar, and the Tempoco brothers had asked me for a beer tasting. When they had my wine tasting, they said, "Can you convert it to beer?" Sure. I have nobody to drink with. Look at all the beers in my cellar. Let's open some and let's do a beer tasting. Come back after a week, and we did the beer tasting, and they decided to open a beer place that did not serve commercial beer but only craft beer. And one day, I showed Alec. I was an amateur brewer. I was making my own beer, and I showed Alec. And a few weeks later, he gives me in a bottle of Red Horse. You know, he used it as a container. He gave me a beer, and I tried it. I said, "Dude, you have the touch. You can be a brewer." And wow, he's made the total science of brewing beer. And this time, I like to listen to them, and I like to listen to Alec creating all these. Telling me all these stories about his exploits in doing the different types of beer. He started with 4, then there were 6, then eventually Glorieta had opened, and there were 20 plus beers, and now there are 30 plus, and it's all their work for several years. One day, it's part of it is sentimental. You see that if you see that frame over there, cacao cake. I had tasted cacao cake, and this was in BGC. I tasted cacao cake, and I said, "Alec, if you enter this in a contest, this is going to win." He did. It won. So, you know, you have a person who's got a real complete touch of how beer is being made. And beer is a beverage that has been around for thousands of years. It's so popular that the Egyptians paid some of their workers with a beer salary. And if we go even way past before the Egyptians became a civilization, there's now a new theory. When wheat was being gathered wild and supposedly being made into bread, now the new theory is bread only became only a second fiddle to beer. It was beer before bread. People started to create beer and started to brew beer, and people settled down and created agriculture communities. So beer is a civilized, it shows civilization, it's a civilized product. Beer was brewed, and this brewing, of course, the grains, some of them had caught the wild yeast, and people started milling this and became bread. But the new theory is that beer came first before even becoming bread. That's a new theory, and they're trying to prove this now. But definitely, it's all because of this beautiful bacteria, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This is the yeast bacteria. There are several strains. There are thousands of strains of this. Some for making beer, some for making bread, some that are good for making wine. But all of these is of one particular strain that was caught in the wild. It's all over. You can go out into the street, you can go into your home, and there's wild geese going all over. And we cannot detach ourselves from the importance of wild yeast. Why? Because a lot of the products that we have on our pantry, in our refrigerator, all come from this fermentation. The ketchup, the mustard, the vinegar, the toyo, the patis, all of these are all flavor enhancers. They all create good food, and they all are related to the fermentation process that occurs even in beer and in bread and in wine. So what happens is you get all these levels of fermentation, these products, and you add it to food, and it starts creating levels of flavor. And this is exactly what you do when you have a good meal, or when you have a meal with a good beverage like beer. You create your levels of flavor. Okay? Let's talk about taste. You have your tongue, and you have levels, you have tongue receptors, taste receptors. These taste receptors can number anywhere between 800 to thousands, maybe 10,000s. And when you're filled with taste receptors on your tongue, you're what they call a super taster. Now, being a super taster is not exactly a blessing. It can be something really horrifying. If you're a super taster, okay, you go near a garbage pile, you'll taste the garbage. So it's not exactly an advantage given by nature to you. But these taste receptors all go to the back area, and the back area of your tongue, of your palate and your tongue. By the way, even your gums and of course your palate, but your gums can taste. Okay? This goes side by side with the nasal passage. Okay? It goes side by side with the nasal passage, which is why now maybe it's more tolerable, maybe it's less uncouth to slurp your wine, to slurp your ramen, to slurp your beer. It's less uncouth because you are going through the tasting process. You are bringing your taste buds and your nasal passages, and once this is filed at the back, over here, the signal is sent to your brain. The signal of all the different types of flavors are all filed in your brain and all brought together by your childhood. What you have tasted since you were a child. What is sentimental? What is pleasant? What is pleasant? So let's start with a simple exercise. Maybe we can start with a simple exercise. We can ask our wait staff to start bringing our lemon and salt, and we can start with the blonde ale that was one of the first Perfect Pint beers. We chose this because it is a bit neutral. It's not a beer that's in your face, but I'd like you to try the experience. Okay, hindi pulutan yung lemon and salt natin. We are going to be using that for our exercise, and we'll take it out. Okay. So let's do first palette. Let's do first palette. And then you can be sure you have enough for 3 sips. Be sure you have enough for 3 sips of the pale ale, the blonde ale, and we are going to try this exercise. Oh, by the way, you may reboot with some of the bread. The bread I brought, I got drunk one evening here. We were doing our discussions on how we're going to go. I got a little tipsy, and I got some spent grain, and I made some bread from the spent grain. So the sugars are out. They were made into beer, but I saw what a waste this spent grain is, and we started to make this bread out of spent grain. Now let's start with a little and a simple exercise. You have lemon and salt. The first is take a slice of the lemon. Bite into the lemon. Saan yung salt natin? Andiyan na rin. Nasa lemon? Nasa side. Nasa side. Okay. Don't touch the salt first, but bite into the lemon and taste the beer. See what changes occur into your palate. Does it make the beer creamier? Does it make the beer sweeter? I can't tell you that because all of us are built very differently. There are people who are we are all genetically different, which is why when I conduct wine tasting seminars, I don't want to belittle the snobs who say, oh, this person is ignorant. No. When I conduct a wine tasting seminar, we should have respect for everybody. If you like sweet wine or what, or if you like bitter beer or what, it's what you like. There is no right or wrong. Even now, we have no right or wrong in this. So just bite into the lemon and take a sip and see what happens and what goes on in your palate. Anyone wants to make a comment? Anyone wants to make a comment? Did it turn the beer creamier or sweeter? Or did it turn the beer flat? Creamier, yes, so rounder. Okay, rounder. Right? So we're talking of beer and some fruit acid that's occurred on the palate. Okay? Take a sip of water, and as in tequila, put in some salt here on your forefish and lick the salt, and then try the beer again, and please see what happens. Any comments? Any comments? what occurred on your palate when you tried the salt in the beer? Anyone wants to make a comment?
I'm not sure about the right term, but it feels like the flavor opened up in my mouth. Previously it was creamier or rounder, now it's more perfect, parang yun.
So let's think about, there is no right or wrong here. There is only you who enjoys your beverage. Whether it be beer or wine, it's only you. There is no right or wrong. Who likes the first experience first? Raise your hands. Alright? Who likes the second experience? No one? No one? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. Now, get the lemon that you bit into, put some salt, bite into it, and then try the beer again. Now let's vote. Experience 1, which is lemon. Experience 2, which is plain salt. Experience 3, which is salt and lemon. Let's vote for lemon lang. First experience. Experience 1, who likes it the best? Experience number 2, who likes it the best? Experience number 3, who likes it the best? Now, suddenly, there was a change of heart. We have a majority who likes the salted lemon experience. Why? We are talking of a more balanced flavor that is paired off with our beer. And in terms of beer pairing, in terms of flavor, you will realize that this beer would probably go well with a lot of salty food and food laced with some form of acid. So this is how we do a lot of our pairings. And now, we can go through aromas and then go to our main, where we taste the food with the perfect, where we taste the perfect pint food with the perfect pint beer. The first thing that we have that we can pass on to everyone, if you want to look at aromas, is yeast. Okay? This is the very basis, the yeast. The yeast goes into the sugars. The yeast goes into the sugars, and the sugars react and feeds on the yeast, which creates this aroma of fermentation. And a residual flavors of this fermentation and the yeast, which reacts with the sugar, is left on the beer. And when the sugars and the carbohydrates start fermenting with the beer, it starts creating longer links where it creates more flavor, links up with more items that go with the beer. So, what particular aromas are created? We can go earthy. Yeast is a type of fungus, and you can have earthy aromas such as mushrooms and such as chocolate. Okay, I chose tablea because it's quite earthy. It's not like the refined chocolates, although refined chocolates can go into beer brewing. These are basically the spinal aromas that you create. Okay? There are several aromas that can happen when beer is brewed, but a lot of the basic spinal aromas can be created. Then, because fermentation is partly an oxidizing and ripening process, then we have fruit. It can be tropical fruit, it can be western fruit, but we have fruity aromas that happen and occur during the fermentation process. These will remain and stay depending on the type of grains used and depending also on the process. So there is fruit. Beer can be fruity. Beer can be earthy. Beer can be yeasty. Okay? There are so many aromas associated. Then, since beer ripens, and since beer is partially due to the hopping process, okay, you have probably the more expensive part of beer, which is the hops. You have hops, and this is important. Meron na bang local hops? Alec, wala pa, no? And so a lot of the hops come from different places that are very cool or cold. Germany, Czechoslovakia, all of these are all suppliers of hops. This is a type of flour that not only preserves the beer, but also creates a certain complexity. So you have floral aromas that are associated with the beer. And sometimes, certain secrets of certain brewers, they do put in a few petals of this and that. They do put in a few sprigs of certain types of herbs. I used coriander or wansul, in one of my beers. There's a lot that can occur. And these are some of the aromas. Certain aromas also can come from what we call kernel. Kernel is dairy, sappy, milky aromas. And this can occur. You can have a beer that smells of dairy. It can be more yogurt-like or flavors that can occur. So these are the aromas, and these are flavors that go side by side when you are doing beer. And of course, a good beer will always be something that you like. It is not something that is highly publicized. It is not probably, it's all these award-winning beers are probably general beers that everybody really like. But what is the important thing is what you like, what you enjoy personally. This is the most important part of tasting. And you can voice out your opinion when you do a tasting. You can say, I'm not particularly fond of these flavors. Maybe you guys like it, but I prefer this. And no harm done. Okay? I think we should be more open now to knowing that we are all genetically different from each other. Okay? So, just this brief introduction, let us go now to what we should have, which is trying the food with the Perfect Pint brews. Trying the Perfect Pint food. Years ago, the Tempomo brothers wanted a place where you can eat well, where people can focus on drinking and have food paired off with their beers. Many places will have a bar and have their drinks and focus only on their drinks and have, typical burgers, ribs, wings, can be really boring. But what about good food, real food? Food that's substantial, food that's not instant, that you throw into the fryer all the time. This is what Perfect Pint is all about. And let us try this with our beers.